The Short Code Podcast is a proud member of the MedEd Media Network. Inspiration, information, and guidance on your journey to medical school and beyond at mededmedia.com.
Meandering in the margins of medicine, it's the Short Code Podcast.
Weird news,
fresh views,
helpful clues, and interviews.
By students, for students.
Subscribe to our weekly show at theshortcode.com.
Let's wrap up your year by asking each other how you would rate different aspects of your first year.
How do you guys feel about anatomy, particularly the cranial nerves?
Yes, rate the cranial nerves.
I feel like we all need to come to terms with the fact that like everybody is struggling, and trying to like quantify the amount is like a fool's errand.
If you want to be more empathetic to your patients, get rid of a piece of your amygdala. Welcome back to the Short Coat Podcast, the show that gives you an honest look at medical school, a production of the University of Iowa Carver College of Medicine. With me today in the SCP studio, it's a passel of M1s, a gaggle, a flock,
that works.
A crowd of M1s. Say hello to Matt Engelken.
Howdy.
Sitting next to Matt is Maddie Fitzhugh.
Hey, hey.
And then over there is Tracy Chen.
What's up, everyone?
And Jacob Lamb.
Hello.
Jacob, Maddie, newbies on the show. Start with you, Maddie. Where are you from?
Yeah. So I'm from Indianola, Iowa.
Oh.
It's a town just south of Des Moines. Pretty small. And then I went to college at Loyola in Chicago.
Okay.
Now
What'd you study at Loyola?
Neuroscience.
Okay. All right.
Big brain girl.
All right. And Jacob, what about you?
I'm born from a small city in Iowa called Cedar Rapids.
Oh, okay.
Pretty far from here.
Yeah.
Then I went to undergrad here, so.
And what did you study in undergrad?
Biochemistry.
Okay. All right. I was hoping for something more, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? More different, you know? So that you could prove to people that you don't have to have a neuroscience degree or a biochemistry degree or whatever to come to med school. But you disappointed me. You studied smart things. So that's fine. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on the show with me. You guys, we're approaching the end of your M1 year. You've got a few things left to do. But if you were to summarize your M1 year, Matt, how would you summarize your M1 year?
Putting me on the spot. Okay.
I am. I'm not fooling around, Matt.
I'd say it's going well. Obviously, there are some parts of it that are really hard and not great, I'd say.
Not great.
But in general, I think that there are a lot of positives. I've made a lot of friends in my first year. I feel like my preconception of medical school was that everybody would be like a gunner and really not necessarily cutthroat, but definitely competitive. And I haven't really felt that, at least at our institution. I feel like almost everybody here I could consider a friend or at least a colleague. And it's a really good environment to be in. So I know that even on my bad days, I have people that I can lean on. And it feels like I can be supported and helped even if I'm struggling in a certain thing. So yeah, even though sometimes school is hard, it's nice to know that I have that backbone that I can rely on.
What haven't you liked?
A lot of school. I feel like obviously the expectation is to learn a lot in your first year. And I feel like we have done exactly that, learned a lot. My main complaint is I feel like some of the things that they want us to learn, I feel like are things that we will end up just Googling when we're doctors. And so I'm not sure why we need to be tested on it in our first year. So yeah, I feel like sometimes the professors can get lost in the field rather than trying to find the big picture. But I also understand that on the flip side, every single blade of grass is important. So it's kind of that hard balance between disliking that we need to learn everything, but also understanding its importance.
Yeah, and also I think it's hard for you to maybe know at this point what it is that's important.
Yeah.
Versus what it is that you'll rarely see in clinical practice.
Yeah, and a lot of that is just there's going to be certain practices that are going to need to know all this stuff that I'm considering useless right now, which depending on the specialty that we go into may be useless, but there's going to be those people that go into a specialty that focuses on all the diseases of the Krebs cycle, and then every single podcast where we complain about the Krebs cycles gonna be like bad to them because they actually need to know this stuff.
Yeah, when these guys complain about the things that they're learning, just keep that in mind. They don't know what they're gonna need someday. They don't know.
One day we're gonna be in residency and they'll be like, remember the coagulation cascade? And we'll be like, oh no.
So let's try this. Let's wrap up your year by asking each other how you would rate different aspects of your first year.
You know what? I think such a big part of every school curriculum is anatomy, and everyone's freaking out about that over the summer. Like, do I study before the M1 year? And it's like, don't do it. But how do you guys feel about anatomy, particularly the cranial nerves in general?
Yes. Rate the cranial nerves.
Can you remember?
From 1 to 12.
1 to 12, yeah.
Well, so my thoughts about the cranial nerves, 10 out of 12. Like, I mean, like, with anatomy, it's just, like, repetition for sure. Like, every time I'd go to a lecture, I'd just be like, what the heck just happened? Like, for me, it was very difficult for me, but, like, I think just, like, enough repetition and, like, actually getting into that anatomy lab was, like, super helpful, and then also helped on the practical exam. That first one was awful, by the way.
Okay. Anatomy. We've got a 10 out of 12 rating. I neglected to put some boundaries on the Likert scale. So, whatever out of whatever you want. That's fair game.
I'd say 10 out of 12 is a pretty decent rating. I think I didn't take anatomy before going here, so it was all brand new. And I will say it's a little overwhelming at the beginning. And I think that it could be just like the way that our curriculum teaches it, but I feel like it was a very accessible way to teach it for people that I guess don't know. Ours is more of like a body centered way. So like we'll focus on different areas of the body rather than like learning all the bones and then all the muscles. Cause at least for me, it's really hard to put it together if we just like learned all the bones and didn't realize why like there's holes in some of the bones and why some of the bones have like things coming off of them. But if you learn the muscles and like what's going through them, then it all makes a lot more sense. So I appreciated that. Like Jacob said, I think anatomy lab was really helpful and our like teachers and facilitators were really good. So in general, I thought that they presented anatomy in an accessible way.
I just wanted to add before we go on, I took anatomy before in undergrad. Was not helpful.
Yeah, I think also, I mean, just a certain amount of time is always spent catching those people who haven't taken anatomy before up in the beginning of medical school. I mean, that's the whole reason why we front load anatomies in the curriculum. But yeah, maybe anatomy. So is anatomy taught? Is the focus of anatomy different in medical school than it is in undergrad in your experience?
Well, undergrad was just like so like surface level that I'm like, I don't even know. Like the first day he talked about like different muscles, and I was like, I don't even remember hearing about these at all.
Okay. All right. What would you ask somebody to rate, Maddie?
Ooh, good one. I mean, we can just throw it back to the Krebs cycle. How would you all rate learning the Krebs cycle for like maybe the 50th time in our lives?
It just seems like I would rate it 3 out of 5. It just seems like first of all, we learned it in like, for me, back in high school, a little bit in like middle school, and then high school again, then undergrad a couple times in here. And it seems like every time they just add on more layers and layers of this onion. And you're like, please stop. I don't want to hold this onion anymore.
Yeah.
I don't like this onion.
Something med school I think has really taught me is that like, especially this semester, now that we're returning to things that we learned last semester, it's crazy that like I just forgot like everything. And it's like I'm learning it for the first time all over again.
Yeah.
I feel like that will continue.
Yeah.
I'd say one positive thing about the Krebs cycle is
it helps us all live.
It does help us all live.
I feel like that's pretty positive.
But it comes back a lot. Obviously, it's, how we generate energy. But something that like you don't learn on a surface level, but you learn further down is like every single part of the Krebs cycle can be like shunted to other things, or other things can come into it. And so honestly, like the coolest part about the Krebs cycle isn't necessarily like the general Krebs cycle, but it's like if the body is trying to like build itself up, it will shunt things away from the Krebs cycle to turn it into fat. And if it's just trying to gain energy, then it'll bring fats and proteins into the Krebs cycle to turn it into energy. And stuff like that I found was like really cool. And it's not just like, ooh, sugar turns into energy. It's like actually how the body will adapt to like different circumstances and different needs. And I found that to be like really cool, that every single part of the cycle and basically everything in biochemistry. Like, don't get me wrong, biochemistry is a lot, but I find it really cool that every single like side product and every single intermediate step has a bigger use for different reactions, and it all kind of comes together in a beautiful symphony that I don't like learning.
So like 4.6 out of 5?
Yeah, somewhere around maybe like a 4.2. I'd say learning it was still hard, but like looking at it after it's learned becomes more beautiful than actually learning it.
How would you rate, I assume that our beloved biochemistry professor, Pete Rubenstein, sang you a song. Did he sing you a song?
He didn't get to sing it this time. I was really sad.
What?
I know the urea cycle song. We should get him to sing it.
The urea cycle song.
We were trying to get him to sing for Carver's Got Talent. He said next year, so I'm going to hold you to that promise, Dr. Rubenstein. I hope you're listening to this. Everyone, it's been recorded.
Oh, that's too bad. Okay. Anything else what else should we rate about medical school?
What about the people in general? How do you guys feel about your colleagues, your like
loaded
fellow
question?
M1s? Ooh. We'll start with fellow M1s.
No, I feel like, at least for me, everyone's a lot more social and just like, I guess normal. That sounds kind of bad, but everybody's just like really cool and interesting. And like, yeah, I've made a lot of friends here, and I think I just like, I enjoy medical school as a whole a lot more than I thought I was going to, which was really good.
They're just normal.
Yeah.
You guys are just normal people.
Yeah.
Nice.
I would say it's a lot more friendly than like undergrad, where like there's just so many people. It's like hard to like connect with people, but like here it feels a lot more like a friendly community, and like there's a lot more people you say like hi to in the hallways and stuff.
Do you think some of that is, like my memories of undergrad are a bit hazy for a few reasons, but do you think part of that is because, in undergrad you're all kind of doing different things. Everybody is probably doing different things. You're hanging out with, engineers and English majors and all this kind of stuff. So you're all doing these different things, but then med school, you're all sharing the same adventure. I guess you could call it charitably. Do you think that's part of why there's a deeper connection?
I think for sure, just like struggling together.
Yeah, I think when you're crying and having a mental breakdown together, there's a bond that forms between each other. Yeah.
A nice crying bond. That's nice. Glad we could provide that for you, Tracy. How would you rate your leisure time, Matt? You mentioned playing video games before the show.
I do like playing video games. I feel like, I think there's no such thing as not wanting leisure time. I feel like I could obviously have more. I think one struggle that I have is that in our curriculum, we have lectures for the next exam before we take the previous exam. So like Fridays and Saturdays for me are almost always just like, I'm going to do nothing type of days. But it's hard to have in like the back of my mind, I have like 6 lectures to watch. And so I find like it's not quite as leisurely as I would like. That being said, I feel like I do find a lot of times to just like hang out with friends or like be able to study with friends and like study, and then we can take a break and like talk or play like a card game or something. So like trying to incorporate leisure time into studying, but then also just like realizing that one of like the side effects of being in medical school is that we're always going to be stressed about something. I'm pretty excited for the summer because I'm not sure about you guys, but I'm not studying for step 1. So I will have really nothing to worry about. And so my leisure times can actually be leisurely. But yeah, just like taking the times where we can like hang out with our friends or play video games or watch Netflix, and like understanding that we are putting aside our studying to do this, and like knowing that it's going to be in the back of our head, but just like accepting that we need our own time to be like human is something that I've been able to kind of come to terms with better than in an undergrad.
Totally agree. I mean, I've never baked before in the past, but I picked up baking here in medical school, and it's been really nice, and just bake for like small groups, small lectures, everything like that. It keeps you sane.
Yeah, I'd agree. Like I set aside like an hour of my each day just to play video games or whatever, just like not study all the time and just like have a time to relax. And like you have to find that balance for yourself.
Yeah, I think in the beginning it was definitely a lot harder because I feel like in undergrad, you're able to get to all of the things on your to-do list, whereas here there's always more that you can do. And so I think for a while it took me time to like learn how to just like put things down and like go enjoy my time. And
yeah, there really is. You could do as much as you want, really.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's a minimum, I suppose, but like you could just keep piling it on. There's always something to do, whether it's, getting involved in extracurricular activities or studying more or all this kind of stuff. Speaking of extracurricular activity, did you do any extracurricular activities aside from the podcast?
Well, so I didn't even do the podcast till now, but like I got involved.
And I resent that.
I got involved in some like volunteering, like with mobile clinic, because there's like a really good opportunity to like actually use what we're learning and like with real patients before like getting into clinicals. And I did part of some other organizations like diversity and just like hosting fun activities and speaker events and stuff like that.
I did mobile clinic too a couple times, which was really fun. And then I also volunteered at something called Upstream Clinic. Yeah, so it's a clinic in the high-risk OB clinic in UIHC. And basically all the patients get like a survey and they can indicate whether they feel like they have like transportation insecurity or like food insecurity, things like that. And then we print off resources that are like county specific to where they live. And then I just go in, have a chat and give them some resources. So that's really awesome.
I get involved in leadership for the community, I guess. So I'm one of the co-mayors of Flocks. And that's been really fun to be able to like put together events and like supervise other things. And last month we put on a 5K called Doc Dash, which was really fun to work with. And I'm really excited for next year to be able to like create a warm and welcoming environment for the incoming M1s. I know we've all talked about like feeling welcome and secure here. And one of my major goals for the fall is to make sure that next year's incoming class feels the same way that we all do.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah. I've done a lot. I've also done a little bit of mobile clinic and upstream clinic. I think something that I'm looking forward to doing actually in the fall and starting a little bit over the summer is like we have an annual bench press.
Yeah, the Domestic Violence Intervention Program is the beneficiary of that fundraiser.
Correct. Yeah, we actually raised $1,000 for them this spring and hopefully raising a lot more in the fall. Everyone should join, get pumped. And then we'll see if the orthopedics department wins first again, as always. Urology made a really good attempt, but I think it's just really fun to like plan and like work with everyone as a team and just meet like many, many great people.
How would you rate your anxiety level?
I feel like out of 5, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
sure.
Whatever rating you like.
We'll do 5. Probably like, I mean, in the beginning, before the first test, I really don't think I've been more nervous in my entire life. So that was like solid 5 out of 5 before the first exam, like more than the MCAT. I don't know why I was so stressed. I think it's just like, we've all worked so hard to get here. And so being here and having our first test, I just was like super overwhelmed. But now I feel like probably like a 2 or 1.
Okay.
I'd say one thing that I noticed. So I got put on medication this year. So we love therapy here. We love treating mental health here. But one thing that I noticed is that I kind of agree where the tests have gotten less like anxiety riddled, but just like the stress and the amount of work that you have to do in medical school can definitely lead to like high anxiety levels just in general, or like burnout, things like that. And so one thing that I really appreciate of like CCOM is that we have a in-house like counseling center. And so it's nice to have those kind of like forward thinking like people to help us before like we need to, or like to have it really accessible. And for us it's free, which is really nice. So we don't even have to worry.
Before it becomes a crisis.
And so it's nice to have that backbone of support. But that being said, I think that there's like a lot that can overload somebody, just like we said, not having enough time for leisure, always like worrying about things that we could be doing can definitely lead to like anxiety producing situations. Not necessarily like being anxious over tests, but just about being anxious in general sometimes.
Anybody else have any anxiety thoughts they want to share?
I think everybody probably has a lot of anxiety. For me, right now, it's been like a 2 out of 5 because we're so close to the end of the semester. But I definitely agree that coming into med school, like I was also having like some health related issues to the point where like they're like, okay, we're gonna send you for an MRI of the brain, and it came back normal. Like you're just stressed. I was like, well, thanks for scaring me. Yeah, but
I love that. That's a great diagnosis because you're like, it's like You're just stressed. Oh, just stressed. Okay. You need to fix your stress.
I know my dentist was like, you're grinding your teeth, and one of the ways you can like stop grinding your teeth is to be less stressed, but also you're in medical school, so that's not going to happen. So we'll just get you a bite guard.
Let me get right on that. Okay.
True. My primary care physician was like, yeah, it's not going to get any better. Good luck. I was like, oh, okay, thanks. But it did get better. Good exercise, planning out things a little bit better, but yeah, baking, so delicious. Not so good for maybe physical health, but we're getting there.
I appreciate that you bring your things into McCowan and share them. They're
A lot of that goes to my friend Betty, and I give a shout out because she's my baking teacher. Yeah.
Listeners, if you ask us a question, it means that I don't have to make something up to talk about on the show, and the show becomes what you want it to be. So send your questions to theshortcoats@gmail.com or leave a message at 347-SHORT-CT. We'll talk about it on the show. What about sleep? The importance of sleep is well known. Do you guys get enough sleep?
No. For me, I try to get like 7, but I don't fall asleep very fast, so usually can't do that. But like, my body just kind of gotten used to it.
I've read that that's not a thing. Why do you have trouble sleeping? Just because you don't? Is it because you don't have good sleep hygiene, or is it because you can't shut off your brain at night?
I'd probably say it's both. Like, I know, like, I get in bed at 12 and wake up at 7, so like obviously like you're cutting it real close already, and then I just can't like fall asleep once I'm like laying down. Like, you know that phenomenon where you're like, oh, you're so tired, and then you try to sleep, and then you're like wide awake.
Yeah,
it's kind of me.
Yeah,
I feel like I have just a little bit opposite as Jacob. I also get around like 7.5, but I make sure that once the clock hits 11, I'm like, all right, it's time for me to like go to bed, put up good routine, and my body knows it's time to sleep. But I fall asleep like ridiculously quickly. Yeah,
I'm more like you, Jacob.
Yeah, I'm jealous. Like,
yeah, I do a really bad job of forcing myself to go to bed. Like if I'm doing something, I'm like, I can keep going, and so there's some nights that just become late nights because I'm like, I can't stop, I have to do these things. That being said, I think like kind of gaming the system to, like, obviously we have classes that we need to go to, but lectures you can watch after the fact. So if I go to bed late, just to be like, I'm not going to set an alarm, I'm going to wake up at like, noon, and then figure out the consequences later of like having to watch lectures like after dinner. I mean, that being said, I always study after dinner, but like to kind of push the night, but make sure that there are nights that I know I can sleep in, so that way I'm not like perpetually exhausted. That being said, I am perpetually tired, but I think that's more of just like a side effect of medical school.
Yeah, I am also one that does not watch lectures live. So I don't know, sleep is like the one thing that I am not willing to like budge on. And so I get like 9 hours probably every day just because like I quite literally can't function if I don't. So, and I'm like super cranky and mean. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I've always had trouble sleeping, but yeah, definitely as I've gotten older, it's pretty much the worst. But I've discovered in recent years sleep podcasts, which is, I always like to point out, is an amazing concept because, here's Dave, the podcaster, trying to come up with something interesting to say every week. And then there's this whole group of people who just want to be boring. And they've probably got more listeners because nobody can sleep. So what's your best memory of this year?
I don't really can think of like one, but I just like the memories I've made with like the new friends that I've made over the course of this year. It's definitely been a change in me. Like I've definitely grown up since coming here and like just like making new memories for me.
Nice.
I will say my most recent one, so a lot of great memories here made in med school, is that my housemates were all watching The Shining. So I wanted to wait until like the part, spoiler alert, but there's twins and there's like a flood of blood coming down. So I quietly went there, covered my face with my hair, and then went to go scare them. That was great.
Nice.
And then I went on with my day and studied.
How dare you spoil a movie that's like 42 years old? So my friend group we watched The Bachelor every week.
That was going to be mine.
Well, we can do a joint one then. Okay. And I think My favorite memory was in the most recent season, so this is only going to be important for people that have already watched The Bachelor, is the lead was horrible at dressing himself. He was not good. And one of the things that we all picked out is that he would wear blazers with just about anything. And I think a couple of times he wore them with hoodies or like quarter zips, stuff that just doesn't go with blazers. And so for the finale,
that's a look. Okay.
It is a look. And so for like the last time we did it for the year, every person showed up wearing just like a horrible conglomeration of clothes. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. We took a group picture and they were very cute.
Nice.
Pics, but that was going to be mine too. It was just nice because it's every single week. And so you had that set time that you just were like putting away all of your stuff and like spending time with friends, and people would bring food and stuff. So that was something to always look forward to. Plus it was always on Monday or Tuesday, and like those days are like not fun anyways. So just made them a lot better.
Nice.
Yeah.
Worst memory.
The wasp that came into my room the other day.
Oh dear.
Yeah. The only thing about Iowa City, besides the weather, I'm from California, so I'm used to hot weather, but it's dry and there's a lot less bugs. But here in Iowa, there's just so many bugs, and they came in through my screen window, and I am terrified of anything that stings. So that would be the worst memory of me just screaming, "There's a wasp," and then people being like, "Did someone scream in the house?"
Do you live with other people?
I live in a house full of 20 other people.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a big co-housing. Phi Sigma.
Yeah.
Putting it out there.
Okay. Worst memory?
So mine is related to my sweet little dog, Noki. She's a corgi. I do, yes. She's pretty loud, but she's good.
Okay.
Yeah. So towards the beginning of the year, she got sick and she had really bad diarrhea. And so
Pets are gross.
It was just all over my whole apartment, and I ended up like stepping in it while I was trying to clean it up, and then that made it worse. And then I, cleaned it all up and flushed it in the toilet, and then my toilet got clogged and the water started overflowing into my entire floor of my bathroom, and I just started crying. So that was probably my worst one.
God damn, pets are just the grossest. We love them so much, but they're pets and children. They're just disgusting.
Yeah, having a dog is just like having a toddler just forever, kind of. But she's lovely. Matt actually met her for the first time.
I did. It was really exciting.
Yeah.
She scared my cats, but that's okay.
Oh.
Worth it.
I don't know if this is the worst memory, but it's the one that creates the best story. And so I am a huge Iowa sports fan. I'll put it on record. I've had season tickets to the football game since I was 7. And so I still keep that up. That's like, we all say that we have something that we're not willing to give up. And for me, I'm not willing to give up going to sporting events.
All right.
And so it was the Iowa Purdue game. And I, like the night before, I was starting to feel kind of gross. But I was like, whatever, it's probably just a cold, and it kept getting worse. And so like before the game, I went to Quick Care to be like, I'm not feeling well. And they're like, we'll just put you on antibiotics, whatever. Like, I don't know what's wrong with you. And I was like, okay. But anyways, I get to the game super early. Me and my friends always sit in the front row. So I'm at the game super early. In line, I get pink eye. And I'm like, this sucks. But I'm like, I can't leave. That's like, I have to go to the football game. So I go to the football game and we're garbage. We play so bad. We're like, at this point, we're number 2 in the country. And we look awful against Purdue. And so I'm like, I'm sick. I'm like trying not to touch anything because I'm also contagious. Luckily, I didn't hear of anybody that got pink eye afterwards. So hopefully I didn't spread it. But don't listen to the future doctor going to a football game with pink eye.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I go to this game just feeling like absolute garbage, and then we lose. And so then I just go home and I just feel like trash. But there's my story.
Okay. Sad memory.
There's not really one that really sticks out. I mean, it's just like, for me, it's like, there's some days that are just hard, and you're just like, you're tired of studying. You're just like, you just want to cry. But boys don't cry, right?
No.
Never.
I don't know, but there's just those days that you're just not feeling it, and then you just gotta kind of push through, or like.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think like the worst days are the kind of days where like if somebody were to ask you what you did, you'd say like nothing, or like I watched one lecture in 8 hours and I was like, well, what do you do during the rest of it? And you're like, I don't know. So it's like the days where like your free time isn't productive free time, it's just like a waste of time, are almost the worst in my opinion.
You can have unproductive free time. That's okay. I give you permission.
Well, I mean, productive free time is in like doing something that betters you. Like productive is in like video games are productive for my mental health, or going on a walk is productive for like clearing my brain or like physical activity. But there's some days that just like don't feel like they're productive in any sorts of way. Just days where you kind of like mess around on your phone and just don't feel like you used your free time to like better yourself. It just feels like you're just as stressed as you were before and you didn't do anything.
Yeah. Well,
sorry for hijacking you, Jacob.
No, I completely agree. Like I have those days where it's like there's a difference between like spending 2 hours like I'm going to play video games for 2 hours versus like, oh, I only got one lecture done in 3 hours, and 2 hours like I didn't
just
play video
evaporated.
games. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Shortcoats, if you're enjoying our conversation today, I'd be grateful if you'd let people know by posting a story on Instagram or Facebook or tweeting about us. And don't forget to tag us in your post.
Thank you.
Well, all right. I'm glad you've made it through your first year. Some people say it's the harder year.
After frolics, I think core year sounds slightly terrifying, but we'll get through it.
But I think a lot of people go into that core year and it's a good change of pace. You know, like you're doing something that's fundamentally different than what you've just spent the last 18 months in our case doing. So
I feel like every year like wants to be the hardest. It's not like an everybody kind of thing, but the amount of times this year that I've been told like, you think foundations is hard, wait until MOHD 1, and then like you think MOHD 1 is hard, wait until MOHD 2, and then like wait until Keystone and wait until core year.
But you're sort of building up your tolerance.
Exactly.
Too.
But I feel like almost everybody like wants to say that what they're going through right now is harder than what other people are going through, and to like just recognize that everything we do is hard. And yeah, things are hard, but we also grow, and like some things are harder for other people is something that like I feel like we all need to come to terms with the fact that like everybody is struggling, and trying to like quantify the amount of struggling we're going through is like a fool's errand.
Probably not super helpful.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to like core year because we get to actually talk to people and then like help out as much as we can, as baby med students can.
I will say, like, I've worked with like some like third years at like Mobile Clinic, for example, and like the difference in like our skills is like completely like I'm just like fumbling through the history, and then they're like exactly know what to ask, and I'm like, that'll be me in 2 years ?
Well, good. Like I said, I'm glad you guys made it this far. It's going to be, things will continue. It'll be great. I don't know what I'm talking about. Our sponsor for this episode is Panacea Financial. It's the national bank for doctors by doctors. As a doctor, the average bank isn't built for the medical student community, but at Panacea Financial, they get it because they've lived it. As a bank founded by two med-peds physicians, they are dedicated to providing solutions for the unique needs of doctors and doctors in training like you guys, including their PRN personal loan. Do you have a good way to cover the cost of moving for residency or paying for an unexpected life cost? Do you want to avoid credit cards or refinance existing and expensive credit card debt? Then check out their PRN personal loan as a way to help. It has up to $15,000 in funding for medical students, a period of no or low affordable payments, no cosigner requirement, and even if you don't need any of Panacea's medical student loans, you can refer a friend, and Panacea Financial will pay up to $250 for each referral. There is no limit to how many people you can refer. So join the growing number of medical students nationwide that expect more from their bank and have switched to Panacea Financial. Visit panaceafinancial.com today to learn how a bank for doctors by doctors can help you. Panacea Financial is a division of Primis, member FDIC. Thanks, Panacea Financial, for your support. It's nice to have you back. You know, you may know that I love a good case study. I mean, bodies are super odd and they do very strange things. sometimes. So let's see if you can peer through these case studies that I picked out from the internet to fill in the blanks in this pop quiz. Ready? Maddie's looking at me like,
I
just not
guess.
prepared for this.
We'll see how good our evidence-based clinical practice skills are.
We got this.
A woman developed serious muscle and heart conditions, arriving at the hospital complaining of leg weakness and dizziness during her 37th week of pregnancy. She had low potassium and an irregular heartbeat. After admission, she developed a rapid heart rate and ended up in intensive care. She had signs of rhabdomyolysis, and imaging showed an enlarged left ventricle. With treatment, her rhabdo symptoms improved, but potassium stayed low. She delivered a healthy baby after induction. Doctors zero in on diet as a potential cause, and after repeated questioning, she admitted that for the past several years, she's been consuming a pound of what every day? This is not multiple choice, people.
Oof.
Not multiple choice.
A pound is a lot of anything.
Yeah.
Just one thing.
A pound of this every day. Talk it through.
All right. We got low potassium.
Yeah.
Rhabdomyolysis. We got a large ventricle. Any clues?
It's got to be something that
I feel like this is a lot to ask of an M1.
Yeah, I feel like we're bad at diagnosing normal things.
Yeah.
It has to, I feel like it's something that would impair renal function.
Renal function.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
What about the potassium, warfarin makes potassium lower, and they told us something about greens and kale and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's interesting.
Consuming too many greens?
I don't know if it's too much potassium or too little potassium.
I think a lot of vitamin K that would help with your clotting.
She's not having a clotting problem.
Oh, man.
Something that breaks down.
You said she had leg weakness?
Yeah.
Is this something that lesions? But the rhabdomyolysis might help have to do something with the leg weakness.
Bad question. What is rhabdomyolysis?
It's muscle breakdown or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe something that interferes with the proteins. To get a clue, as is a vegetable category.
You are probably very familiar with this personally.
Avocados?
No. You specifically, Tracy, have mentioned something in today's show that makes me think that you are very familiar with this thing that you could, but probably shouldn't eat.
Is it cookie dough?
Cinnamon?
No.
Butter.
A pound of butter is a lot. If it's something in baking soda.
You got it. Baking soda.
Oh.
She has pica, a condition that is common during pregnancy, involves cravings for non-food items like cornstarch, clay, dirt, ice, and baking soda, among other things. Consuming large amounts of baking soda, something this woman had started years before to treat her hiccups, leads to metabolic abnormalities. When she stopped eating baking soda, many of her symptoms resolved, although her enlarged ventricle stuck with her a little bit. So there you go, baking soda.
That must be so hard to just eat a whole pound of baking soda.
Have you ever eaten baking soda straight, just tasted it?
No.
Pretty salty. I feel like it's pretty salty.
It always seems like it would taste better than it actually does.
Well, it's used in baking, right? You're like, must be good. All right. A 25-year-old German man was trapped in an avalanche during a ski trip. Buried and unconscious, he suffered hypoxia for 15 minutes. He was rescued, but developed myoclonic twitches in his mouth when he talked and legs during walking. He also developed tonic-clonic seizures in his left arm and was prescribed anti-epileptic medication. After leaving the hospital to rehab, he began having his seizures in his left arm when he engaged in what activity?
What do we do with our left arms?
It's personal. You're never going to get this. But go ahead, throw out some wacky.
Watching TV.
Okay. We have got watching TV. Matt?
Oh, you put me on the spot. I don't know yet.
Maybe dancing.
Okay. Dancing.
Benching.
All right. Yeah, I mean, he's an athletic guy. He might be benching.
I'm going to say playing shuffleboard.
Yeah. All answers are wrong. The answer is doing Sudoku. Doctors determined that he had an unusually intense three-dimensional imagination, which he used to solve Sudoku puzzles. It enabled him to sort of sort the numbers and put them into the right sequence and all this kind of stuff. The hypoxia had disabled inhibitory neurons in his brain in the central parietal region, leading to the seizures in his left arm. With medication and foregoing Sudoku, he's been seizure-free for 5 years.
Wow.
I don't like Sudoku.
Oh.
I'm going to, hot take, don't like Sudoku. You know why? Because I'm dumb. Super dumb with Sudoku.
I don't know if I've ever played.
My daughter and wife like Sudoku, but can't stand it. Just so you know. All right, next one. In an attempt to treat a woman for her severe temporal lobe epilepsy, doctors removed her amygdala and parts of her temporal lobe from one side of her brain. The surgery was successful in resolving her seizures, but as is expected with this kind of surgery, the woman's cognitive abilities were effective. What change occurred, probably due to the removal of part of her amygdala? What's the amygdala do? What's it do?
Fear.
Fear. Okay. Fear.
So she loses her ability or less fear.
Less able to restrain herself.
Yeah. Maybe hypersexual.
Maybe. I'm going to say she starts doing like cliff jumping and stuff like that.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. Right. Maybe goes up to random strangers and starts hugging them.
Okay. All right. Feel like you're close. You're closer.
Oh. That was just straight out of a random trash bag in my head.
Let's see. I feel like what she actually gained something that you might find useful in your future careers.
Is it photographic memory?
No. That's a good one though. Yeah. Not gain a photographic memory.
Maybe she's just like more personable, like more easy to pick up or like start talking to people, have conversations with them.
Okay. You're on the right track.
Ooh, it's tough.
The answer, I'm just going to give it to you, unless somebody else has another guess that they really want to put out there. The answer is that she became hyper empathy. You might expect that she'd become less able to read the emotions of other people with the removal of her amygdalas. The region is involved in recognizing emotion. But after surgery, she reported a new spectacular emotional arousal, which has persisted for more than a decade. She reports an increase in her ability to decode others' mental states, along with physical effects when witnessing emotional content on TV, in books, and when meeting other people. One test doctors tried involved having her recognize emotions from photos of only people's eyes, and her scores were significantly higher than that of control subjects. So, you know, if you want to be more empathetic to your patients, get rid of a piece of your amygdala. That's my prescription. Do you think I have a little bit of hyper empathy when it comes to watching TV and movies. Like I get really uncomfortable with shows where things are going wrong for people, and I'm like, I don't want to watch this.
I feel that. I cry a lot because I empathize with whatever, like the lead character, and it takes very little for me to just like start bawling in like movies and such.
I feel like I get a lot of secondhand embarrassment.
Yeah.
Like especially from like some of the TV shows, like the first season of The Office for me was really hard to watch just because like I feel like the later seasons got a little bit better, but the first season I felt like that just had a lot of secondhand embarrassment for me.
Yeah, the secondhand embarrassment thing is pretty much what I get to. I'm with you. Well, that's our show. Matt, Maddie, Jacob, Tracy, thanks for being on the show with me today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
it's fun.
And what kind of pile-and-idle cyst would I be if I didn't thank you, Shortcoats, for making us a part of your week? If you're new here and you like what you heard today, follow the show wherever fine podcasts are available, like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube. Our editors are Maddie Wallin and Nick Lind. Nick, thanks for all your help. Congratulations on graduating medical school. Fantastic. The show is made possible by a generous donation by Carver College of Medicine Student Government and ongoing support from the Writing and Humanities program. Our music is by Dr. Fox and Catmosphere. I'm Dave Etler saying, don't let the bastards get you down. Talk to you in 1 week. Hi, Shortcoats. Look, life in medical education, life in America, life in the world is often difficult. And I often wish I could help. All I have is this podcast, but
In my wildest dreams, you have the support you need to lead a life of your choosing. You deserve to be happy, healthy, and successful in whatever ways you define those words. So if you need support because you've experienced racism, discrimination, harassment, mental health crises, I want you to be able to get the help that you need. And so I'm going to put some links in the show notes to some resources that you can use. But the bottom line is that for what it's worth, I see you. I know you're out there. I wish I could do more. Maybe I can in ways that I don't understand yet or know about. But I see you, and I'm glad you're here, and other people are too.